So, welcome. We have with us former Vice President of India, Hamid Ansari. He has come out with a new book, By Many a Happy Accident, which is truly a reflection and a recollection of his life, his childhood, his time as an IFS officer, as a visiting professor, chairman of the National Minorities Commission, and as the Vice President of India. Let's get in directly. So, what are your observations about India's foreign policy? Do you think there is a cohesive strategy?
I would think so, yes.
Why do you say so?
Because there has been a certain consistency in Indian foreign policy,
Okay.
which the standard vocabulary was non-alignment, but people are tending to discard standard vocabularies. New times, new vocabulary, new dictionaries, but it doesn't matter. The approach is the same, that it is a approach to the world and world problems, not from the point of view of this person or that person, this country or that country, but in India's judgment and in India's interest.
Okay.
Foreign policy is not altruistic. Foreign policy is national interest.
So our Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar, he talks about a multipolar world. PM Modi but has skipped 2 non-aligned movement summits. Do you agree with the administration that the non-alignment movement has lost its steam?
No, times have changed, and therefore the practical perceptions of non-alignment have to change with times.
So how?
No, depends on what the challenges are. After all, what was non-aligned about? It was about in the period of the Cold War, and therefore there were certain things which were projected as priority issues before a wide range of countries, from Asia to Africa to Southern America to parts of Europe and all that. So it will keep, it's flexible but consistent.
Okay. So now it has lost its steam then?
No, I won't say that. We'll have to see. You don't judge these things on the basis of a one-day performance or 1 year performance. You see it over a longer period of time.
Okay. Another problem today is the India-China standoff. How do you think the tension will ease, and do you think we will be able to go back to the days before Doklam and Galwan Valley issues?
It takes two hands to clap.
Okay.
I think the governments have managed it by and large well. I mean, in the period of the 90s, and then particularly the period of Dr. Manmohan Singh's government, they negotiated with great diligence certain approaches. That we had a problem, yes, nobody can deny it. How to address that problem? It will take time to resolve it, but making sure that it doesn't get out of hand. So that was the approach
Then.
And I think till the recent incident, that approach worked.
But now?
There has been a bit of derailment right now, but as Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has said quite often enough lately, that we have to keep talking. So we'll keep talking.
But you don't think there's a going back to pre-Doklam and Galwan Valley?
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. It depends on your perception of the other party, the other party's perception of us, and where do we find a meeting point.
You have visited China when Xi was
I went there as Vice President.
Yes. And what were your observations?
No, I had very positive conversations there and very warm reception. So there's no problem in that. But no, I mean, policy is one thing. Perceptions is one thing, policy is another, and then implementation is a third part. It's an ongoing process. It's not something that is open and shut.
Has the law and the rhetoric around the Citizenship Amendment Bill impacted our ties with our neighbors and our standing in the world?
Not with so much with our neighbors as
Bangladesh?
There have been some expressions of misgiving. I think the debate on that is still to be settled. It hasn't been settled yet. I mean, yes, it was passed into law, signed by the Rashtrapati ji,
Yes.
yet to be implemented.
Yes.
Why?
Why?
Good question. You see, every law requires a set of rules,
Yes.
and those rules also have to go back to Parliament,
Yes.
and there is a committee.
There's an extension that's been given yesterday till July 9th.
No, that is the reason being that set of rules has to be produced within a matter of 5 months or 6 months.
6 months.
And if it is not produced, then there is a committee in Lok Sabha and a committee on Rajya Sabha called Committee on Subordinate Legislation. Subordinate legislation means the rules.
Yes.
The rules have to be made, submitted to the legislature, and then scrutinized by the legislature. Whether there is anything in the rules which goes beyond what the Act says. So it is still a work in progress, and I think there are perceptions on it which need to be clarified. Government has responded to it in some measure, whether it is to satisfaction of everybody in the citizen body. You see, the point is very simple. Let's not look at, there is no dearth of identities in India.
Yeah.
Absolutely no dearth. Okay. Start from there, go down to Kanyakumari, and nothing but identities.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah. In Kerala itself, we have so many identities.
Each one of us. I'm a member of a club. I have an identity. I speak a certain language. I have an identity. Plus on, so on, so forth. But the uniting thing is I'm an Indian. The uniting thing is I'm an Indian citizen.
But that is being questioned with this act.
If this is being questioned, then I have a right and a duty to remonstrate.
Yes.
Because my identity is my identity. It's not bestowed on me. You know, it's not somebody's gift.
Yeah.
That's all. So it's a debate, since it is still an open society, we'll keep debating it.
You were in Iran when the Babri Masjid was demolished in 1992. The Iranian authorities had remonstrated strongly then. The then government had asked you to convey that the Babri Masjid, the mosque shall be rebuilt, is what you have written in the book here. Did you ever think that was possible with the growing Hindu fanaticism? Did you believe it, and now?
I was instructed to convey a message, I conveyed a message.
But did you believe it? Did you
Not a question of my believing a government directive.
Okay. Did you think it is possible? Did you at that point think it is possible?
Well, of course it is possible. It is also possible to make it resort to a lot of sophistry, because it didn't say it will be built tomorrow, yesterday, day before. Huh? So there will be a lot of sophistry, and if you ask the present day government, they'll say yes, of course, but Supreme Court has done this, so follow what Supreme Court has done. I mean, you can do a lot of clever talking. That's it.
But the India of today will not see it.
I don't know. I don't know at what pace they are going to work. And
you were a part of the working group on Kashmir in 2006. Now with the abrogation of Article 370 and the house arrest of leaders and the sustained political immobility in Jammu and Kashmir, do you think we have really addressed the issues? We have not, or we have not, and why?
Well, you see, my view was, when it was done, it is not that constitutional provisions cannot be amended or changed, but there is a process, there is a procedure. My view was that that procedure was not followed. Okay. Why it was not done? Everybody has a view. You have a view, I have a view.
How has it hampered Kashmir?
Public perceptions in Kashmir. Listen to Kashmiri leaders, people who have been chief ministers, people who have been leaders of political parties. After all, Mrs. Mahbooba Mufti, till the other day, was not only chief minister, she was also an ally in an alliance with the present ruling party. Okay?
Yes.
When I was fighting the battle with our good neighbors Pakistan in New York in 1992-93, amongst the high-powered political component of our delegation was Mr. Dr. Farooq Abdullah. So was the late Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
Yeah, you mentioned it.
Point is, things could have been done better.
The current regime has been demanding the removal of the minority status for the Aligarh Muslim University. As the former AMU Vice Chancellor, what is your opinion?
I think there is a debate on that, isn't it?
Yes, there is a debate, so I wanted to know your
No, I shall not enter the debate. The point is, it is a central university.
Okay.
Okay. It is rated high in terms of its work.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you see, all this business of certain words in political terminology are usually loaded words. What is minority status and non-minority status? All it means in practice is that a certain percentage of seats in certain faculties, the contested faculties, engineering, medicine, something like that, a certain percentage of seats will go to a particular section of the community.
Yes.
Nothing more than that. Okay. Now, you see, the difficulty is that our political vocabulary has a bad word in it. It's called reservation. I would much rather prefer a term called affirmative action, okay, which is internationally accepted terminology. So, why do you resort to affirmative action? Because you need to give a helping hand.
Yes.
That's all. Okay. If a child is not doing well in class, then the teacher sees to it that the child is given a helping hand by extra classes or extra tutoring or something like that. So, the same thing is there with sections of population. After all, it's not a uniform population. We conceded it to a point, we didn't concede it beyond a point. We recognize that SCs and STs need, I call affirmative action, because they are backward. Government and official vocabulary called it reservation. Okay. So, similarly, I mean, there are parts of the country where affirmative action is necessary.
Yes.
When Prime Minister Modi used the term in a speech, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. And in a public speech, I said, this is excellent, but the requirement is that everybody has to be at the same starting line at the starting point. If a child is 10 steps behind, he cannot catch up. So, you take affirmative action and justify it on valid grounds. If you don't justify it on valid ground, if you resort to politicking, then trouble is bound to emerge.
So, coming back to the issue of the minority status
of Aligarh Muslim University, I think assurances were given way back that it was an institution established by Muslims. It is in the Act, and that's how it should remain. And that otherwise, you will question every other such institution in the country.
Yes.
And what do you get out of it? Maybe 5 extra seats in medicine, of 4 extra seats or 10 extra seats in engineering. It's not worth the trouble. These are all politically disguised acts at hitting people from the back. That's all.
Okay. During your tenure as the National Minorities Commission Chief, what did you think were the issues facing minorities, particularly Muslims and Christians? Because your book mentions that you got several representations, mostly from Muslims and from Christians in 2 states, Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. So,
they all have problems of, shortages of treatment on this count or that count. After all, each one of them is a citizen.
Yes.
And therefore should get the same treatment as every other citizen. If she is not getting it, either individually or as a group, then it has a right to question and ask. You see, the difficulty in our country is that citizen, I claim as an individual, equality of treatment. I don't claim reservation, I don't claim special treatment, nothing. But as a citizen, I am equal to any other citizen. That's all.
Okay. That's okay. But particularly, how do you think these issues can be addressed then?
I'm not a politician. How it can be addressed? It can be addressed only within the framework of the Constitution of India.
Yes.
Isn't it? If you deviate from the Constitution of India, all kinds of problems will plague you.
You'll have to elaborate on that.
That will take a lot of time.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Because you mentioned the equality bit. So in the Sachar committee,
just read the preamble of the Indian Constitution.
Yes.
It speaks of equality, it speaks
Yes.
of justice,
Yes.
it speaks of all of fraternity.
Yes.
What do these terms mean? They speak loud and clear. There has to be equality, there has to be justice.
Yes.
Now, justice is the foundation of any society.
Yes.
Books, tomes have been written on the concept of justice. And then fraternity. If you don't treat the fellow citizen as a fellow citizen with equal rights, equal duties, then you are not doing justice.
So all that is kind of missing now?
In parts it has always been missing, it's perhaps missing in greater measure now.
In the Sachar committee report, one of the recommendations was to set up the Equality Commission. A parliamentary standing committee had also submitted a report. But after that there was nothing heard of it. Do you think it's possible to implement it now?
Well, in the present state of affairs, I don't see that a priority item. But you see, the point is people don't always pay sufficient attention to it. The policy making process in our system. Now, this is a federal system.
Yes.
Though we evade the term here, there all kinds of sophistries resorted to, which means that certain policy decisions are taken by the central government.
Yes.
Implemented by state governments. Some are implemented by the central government and its ministries directly. Many of them are implemented at the state level. This is what happened with the Sachar report. Decisions were taken. They were passed on to state governments to implement. For one reason or the other, they did not get implemented in the right spirit to the right extent. There are follow-up reports on such a report,
Yes.
which spell this out quite clearly. Professor Thorat, various other people have written very comprehensive assessments.
But because it was also passed to the center and because it got stuck at the passed to the states and it got stuck at the center, you don't see it now.
Yeah, nobody talks about it. That's a different matter.
Yeah, no one does.
Change of vocabulary is something which is a reality of life.
Yes.
And right now in India, a lot of vocabulary has been changed.
Yes, I will be coming to. During your tenure as the NMC chairperson in 2006, a study was done on those who had lost everything in the 2002 Godhra riots. Do you think the victims have gotten justice,
No.
like you have spoken?
No.
And have the Muslims overcome it, or have they been marginalized in Gujarat?
Well, both.
So they have not gotten justice.
The effective relief exercise by state government, which is subject of a lot of serious studies, has not been delivered by the state government.
Okay.
Okay, there are no two views about it. There's enough factual data.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
In many ways, they have rebuilt themselves. Like victims of any such situation, whether it is a natural disaster
Or the pogrom in Delhi also.
or the pogrom in Delhi. I mean, we have many examples. You don't have to dilate on it. Everybody knows it. So it depends on the intent. The intent is not there.
So the families had to do it themselves.
They have done it in various measures, but there has been ghettoization, unquestionably. I know many cases
And that
where
has.
people have moved into certain localities because that is only safe there. It's not only in Gujarat, it's happening all over the country.
Yes. It's in Delhi too.
Yes, in Delhi too.
I mean, I can say about Delhi because I live here.
Yeah, I know. I am very well aware of it.
And do you think they will ever see justice? In terms of Gujarat, I'm talking about Delhi.
Godhra is 18 years behind us,
Yes.
isn't it? A whole generation has grown up.
Yes.
They have learned to survive one way or the other
But that
under
has also-
conditions of injustice. But you see, religious minorities the world over have suffered this kind of situation. What about pogroms in Europe?
Yes.
The Jewish communities in various parts of Europe suffered immensely for centuries.
Yes. That's true.
They were even not allowed to practice certain professions.
Yeah.
I went to, as vice president, to the Czech Republic,
Yes.
and I was talking to somebody there, and he said there was a time here when if you were of Jewish faith, you could only indulge in agriculture as a profession, be a farmer.
Okay.
So intelligent people that they were, educated people as they were, they invented a profession. This is the interesting part.
Okay.
Impression was money lending.
Yes.
Huh? We read all about
Yes.
Shylock.
Yes.
Huh? But that was an invention under compulsion.
Okay.
So religious minorities or any kind of minority in any society have to be sufficiently alert to see where opportunities exist or can be made to exist.
Okay. So that they also come on par with the others, because it does not, it gives, they are behind, they are not given a head start in life.
No, they are not. They have to pick it up and grab it.
Hardly a day goes by without us reading of the Hindutva mobs demonizing Muslims. Now love jihad, gar wapsi and anti-conversion laws have become the norm. How do you view all of this?
The first thing is, are the legal procedures being followed?
I do not think so.
No, I know that they have not been followed. You see, it's just an executive fiat which is presented as a law and implemented because you are the executive.
Yes.
But how do you prevent such? I mean, it is such an absurdity to tell somebody in the outside world, love jihad. Are you going to prevent people from doing this because of you have this faith or that faith? So this is absurdity, but it is a absurdity arising out of an obsession, number one. Number two, to divert attention from what are the real problems of society.
What are the real problems?
Development, poverty, that's what real problems are. Any part of India,
Yes.
north, south, east, west, what is the problem? This is the problem. It's not love jihad, it's not okay,
Conversion.
some people do convert, so they convert as long as the conversion is voluntary and
Yes.
without exercise of pressure. That's okay. The preaching of your faith, if you are a preacher,
Yes.
you have a right under the Constitution to preach. There was a big debate in the Constituent Assembly about it.
Yes.
The wording of Article 25 is very clear on this.
Have we become an intolerant society? Are we better or worse than before?
We've certainly create many instances of intolerance, enhanced intolerance can be seen now, can have been experienced in last few years. I mean, there has been a certain amount of intolerance always,
Yes.
okay, but quantitatively there has been an increase. Qualitatively, because of state support or state tolerance, there's been a qualitative change.
Yes.
What I expect from the ruler is that the ruler will not justify something which is not right, right in the wider sense of the term, not only in the narrow legal framework, but more than that.
Okay. But hasn't that worsened the situation for Muslims more than the others?
I think it's worsened the situation for all religious minorities.
Yes, it has.
Christians have faced this problem in a big way in different parts of the country. After all, what happened in Orissa some years back, not only Orissa, it's been happening
In
all
Tamil
over
Nadu, in Chhattisgarh.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's all public knowledge. I don't have to sort of cite instances.
You changed the timings of the question hour and
Yes.
brought forward the 0 hour. What was the effect of this change?
Well, the question hour was saved.
Okay.
You see, it is a normal impulse
Yes.
in every member as the house begins the day's work to try to push his matter of concern
Yes.
to the top.
Yeah.
And therefore, very often, the question hour was being disrupted by member X, Y, Z, saying there has been a railway accident, there has been a death, there has been a flood, there is this, that. Put it to the top.
Yes.
But every time you do that,
the member,
then the question hour suffers.
yes.
And what is the question hour? Question hour is the seeking the accountability of the government
Yes.
through questions.
Yes.
And those questions are carefully drafted and very carefully answered. They never answered casually.
Yeah.
Ministers are very particular about it. So I said, this is the impediment. So why not change it? I mean, everybody came to me and said, what are you trying to do? The convention is the first hour. I said, I know the first hour. All I am trying to do is to save the accountability provision
Yes.
by taking it up later in the day, I mean an hour later, and bringing the 0 hour forward. So the rule was that, the new rule was that 15 questions
Yes.
will be taken
Yeah.
in that first 45 minutes or so. It worked.
And you saw results.
I saw the result. The question hour was saved.
Yes. It
Because
was.
I regard the question hour as a very important aspect of accountability.
Okay.
That's all.
For not siding with the BJP in the Rajya Sabha, once they came to power, they have attacked you both in and outside the house. How did you manage it and navigate it?
But it was not my job to side with any side.
It wasn't, but they thought so.
I made this amply clear from the first day. I'm a referee in a hockey match.
Yes.
Okay? The referee observes the match very closely. Referee has a whistle and a rule book. But he's not a player.
No.
So doesn't matter who this on this side and who's on this side. I had nothing to do with the agendas of governments. I mean, it is a misunderstanding of the role of the chair. The chair does not have a vote and does not emanate from any side.
Okay. There were several times the leader of the opposition, or even after that, Arun Jaitely has read the rules differently. What was your relationship with
Very
Jaitly?
cordial. Very cordial. He was a very erudite man, very well versed in procedures, and occasionally he would pull a fast one.
Yes,
But
more than occasionally.
Huh?
More than occasionally.
Possibly. Never speak ill of the dead.
Okay. While you were the Rajya Sabha chair, Prime Minister Modi had come with a request to pass bills
Everybody asked the same question.
over the din. What to do? Did you get the feeling that the PM wanted to sidestep parliamentary procedures because they had brute majority?
I won't put it that way.
Okay. How would you phrase it?
Every government tries to rush legislation as quickly as possible, with as little debating as possible. Okay? The normal procedure is the government brings a new piece of legislation. The House Time Allocation Committee meets in the committee room of the chairman and decides, on the initiative of the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, that we will debate this for 3 hours or 5 hours or 2 days. Okay? That's all. But sometimes there may be political agencies, push it through somehow. Don't scrutinize it too closely. You see, my point about scrutiny is that it's not only, firstly, all wisdom is not with the government. There may be brilliant people drafting the legislation, but they're still humans. Another person looking at the same thing would see it differently. And that is why you have so many pieces of legislation which land up in courts, High Court or Supreme Court.
Yes.
So try to avoid it by taking the view of as many people as possible.
During your farewell, Prime Minister Modi attempted to pigeonhole your career. Were you surprised by that or taken aback?
It was slightly unusual because
It is not the norm.
farewells, you only say nice things, in a somewhat exaggerated way, but still say nice things. So that deviated from it a bit, and I said so.
Yes.
In fact, when I was the last speaker to thank the members.
Yes.
And I started with an Urdu couplet.
Yes.
It says that so many allegations have been piled on me that my approach of innocence seems abandoned. But people don't know another thing, or have not noticed it, that day he made 2 speeches.
Yes, the second one also you mentioned in the book, where he didn't say
He
all
didn't
of
say
this.
that. It was different in tone and content from this first one. Why so? Why didn't the media pick it up? I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. It didn't suit them politically? Yes.
The opposition has claimed that A, they were not consulted on the new parliamentary building and the Central Vista project. B, that it is a wasteful expenditure during the pandemic. What is your opinion on the new parliamentary building as a former custodian of the parliament? What is your opinion?
Very difficult to answer that. I did have a certain premonition as I walked out of the Rajya Sabha on that last day,
That
this theatre of debate and discord may undergo a change. That's all. It's for the parliament to decide.
what is your opinion about it?
I don't know. I've read a great many pieces about it. You see, my crucial question is not how much space each member has got, how big a hall is, how beautiful a hall is, how much time is there.
Yes.
There was a time when Indian Parliament would meet for about 100 days in a year.
Yes.
Now it meets for about 60 days or less.
Less.
That means less work is being done on accountability, on debating public issues, on drafting legislation. So the proof is not, I mean, you take any TV shot of British Parliament, okay? Half the members are not sitting. They are standing in the lobbies.
Yeah.
So it's not a question of that everybody should have a comfortable seat. That's not the issue.
You have mentioned that the term secularism itself has disappeared from the government vocabulary.
I based myself on the election manifesto of
2019 of
19.
Yes, 19 of
It
BJP,
was there
yes.
in 2014.
14, yes.
It was not there in 19.
The Sankalp Patra,
Yeah.
it was not there. So, is India a secular nation only in name then? What are your fears for the country, since you've mentioned it in the
Secularism is part of the constitution.
Yes.
If it is not being observed,
Yes.
then we are not implementing a part of the constitution.
Yes.
That's all.
Would you want to elaborate a little more?
Well, see it in everyday life, that's all. If you don't pay, it's after all a concept.
Yes.
You know, it's not.
A set of rules or.
Yes, it's not something that you pick it up and eat it.
Yes.
If you don't practice it, and the practices are well defined, you know, there is a great deal of literature available on Indian perception of secularism, which is not the perception of, let's say, the French, for example. For the French, it is the state being irreligious.
Yes.
Our founding fathers knew and concluded that the Indian society cannot be forced to be irreligious.
Yes.
But what the Indian society can do is to treat all religions equally. That's all.
And what are your fears then for the country?
Just that.
That no one is and no one will be?
We have to see how it manifests itself, but some of the practices which are now emanating from state governments. Now, why are they emanating? Why aren't they being converted into national legislation? After all, the law on conversion is
Yes.
not a matter for one state. It happens in Kerala also, it happens in Bengal also, it happens right here in Delhi. It's not something which happens again and again and again. But if it does happen under the rights of citizens, it is their right.
BJP government is forcing religious majoritarianism on the functioning of our democracy. What will its lasting effect and be, and the damage it will cost us?
It will damage the fabric of society. It will damage the concept of fraternity. It will damage the concept of equality, and in consequence damage the dispensation of justice, which is the right of every citizen, irrespective of his or her faith.
Okay. For 7 decades, we have been discussing about constitutional rights. Now we are compelled to discuss constitutional duties. Do you think several of our institutions are not fulfilling their constitutional duties?
Well, this section 51, Article 51A came many years ago in a constitutional amendment. Those duties are there, they are good duties, and they should be implemented. It should be implemented at all levels of society, and the consciousness of those duties must be inculcated.
Are our institutions failing?
I think so. To some extent they are. Some extent, I mean, say, take it cultivating a scientific temper. Very difficult in a very hypocrisy, tradition-minded society. But it's necessary to be there as a reminder.
Yes.
That's all.
So how will it affect us? If the institutions are not doing their duty, it means that it will affect the poorer
You see,
of
the
the
institutions are what? The institutions are not just the parliament or Supreme
No,
Court.
it's not.
It's right down to schools.
Yes.
So, school curricula has to pay attention to it. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.